So I just read this fascinating article from The Atlantic called "That's It, You're Dead to Me" by Caitlin Tiffany. And the article opens up talking about this woman's experience with her roommate basically no longer speaking to her after they had an argument together, and how he labeled her as toxic and then cut her out of his life. And she goes on to talk about how in our modern social media world, we get so much of our psychology and self-help information from just other people, as opposed to clinical psychologists or people who understand relationship dynamics. And we basically don't want to take accountability for our own actions in different interpersonal dynamics. And I really like that she asks the question, what do we owe one another? What do we owe ourselves? What mistakes can we make and still ask for forgiveness? Because there seems to be this growing trend that she points out in the article of just cutting people out of your life forever without ever offering the chance for atonement. Here she says, some people blame self-absorbed young people. In the New York Times column last year, David Brooks employed the work of Pillemer and other experts to argue that the estrangement epidemic might be driven by a generational shift in what constitutes abuse. This I thought was interesting. Difficult or distant parents redefined as dangerous. He wondered whether today's young people view the family as a launchpad for personal fulfillment rather than the site of lifelong obligation. Brooks then painted a lonely picture of the psychological unraveling of America, working in high rates of X and X, as well as the sizable percentages of Americans who feel that they do not have even one close friend and that nobody truly knows them. I thought this part was interesting too. Why is this happening? Maybe young people have been inspired by the impermanence and infinite choice baked into online dating and social media. Maybe our brains have been pickled into wellness culture and self-care rhetoric, which stress the need to privilege our own well-being above all else. I thought that was really interesting. Or maybe we're just good American capitalists, encouraged by the cult of individualism to think of ourselves as compelling brands, the main characters of cinematic star vehicles, the centers of the universe. I'm really curious what y'all think. Why do you think this estrangement epidemic is happening? Do you think it's because people have more agency, or people are more selfish, or people are more individualistic, or people are better at setting boundaries, or worse at setting boundaries, or unable to engage in conflict, or starting to engage in conflict? It's really fascinating because I think the article makes some good points, but I also think there's some glaring omissions. This last part I think was probably the most important. Is it conflict or is it abuse? An abusive dynamic, she argues, requires one person to have power over the other, whereas conflict involves two people struggling for power. The distinction can be confusing, and in some cases, both people feel like they're being abused because they're not getting their needs met or they're not getting their way. Chew on that one for a little bit. That's fascinating. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments.